As it stands right now, we're a couple of months away to what I would argue is almost going to be a soft relaunch of Fallout 76. And of course, with this, I'm referring to Fallout 76's Wastelanders DLC. This is a DLC for a game that I'm almost anticipating more than I anticipated the original game's release. That's how excited I am for this, and it looks pretty awesome. But today, what I want to share with you guys all is pretty much everything we know about it. I went back through QuakeCon, E3, and all of the other little interviews in between, including an additional breakdown of the trailer, compiled all that information into one, and now I'm sharing that with you, giving you one of the most comprehensive looks you can see as to what we're getting with Wastelanders based off the information previously provided. This is certainly something to get excited for, and hopefully after watching this video, you'll be as hyped as I am. If you enjoyed the content, you can leave a like or subscribe. It obviously took a little bit to get all of this information together. Also, when this eventually does come out, I will have a lot of coverage on the actual release. But taking a look first at some of the big picture stuff. What exactly is Fallout 76's Wastelander update? Bethesda explains how, following the release of Fallout 76, one of the major complaints they saw with the game was around the lack of human NPCs and even beyond that, dialogue choices. So earlier this year, just before the release of their 2019 roadmap, they decided that they were going to fix that with the Wastelanders DLC. This has been described as a DLC that will overhaul the game, bringing back true choice and consequence. And also, they continuously described how the community is really going to drive what happens with this. It was the community's requests initially that actually led to them developing this DLC and reintegrating human NPCs, and it seems like it's been the continuation of community requests that will start to guide what we see next. They're attempting to overhaul the game and add in this true choice and consequence, mostly through the addition of human NPCs with them dialogue choices, but also instancing technology. So you'll actually see things that are different from other players, meaning that you can affect things with some level of permanence. And this is expected to drop at some point in November, barring any delays pushing it back even further. So as far as the format of the rest of this video goes, I'm going to really break it down into some major categories: the story, the new features, then some of the more specific things like new NPCs, weapons, and armors that are on the way. Taking a look first at the broader story that is coming with Wastelanders, it seems like it's going to be a pretty interesting one. Rather than continuing what we see with Fallout 76, it seems like they're going to be adding in a couple of new players and factors. The Wastelanders DLC is going to see settlers and raiders come from other areas to Appalachia, this in search of a fortune. We don't know exactly what this fortune is going to be one way or the other. Some of the promotional imagery makes it look like it is literally just gold, but it seems to be the driving force for the arrival of these two groups, and it's described as taking place 1 year after the opening of Vault 76. This new main story is going to really focus around the raiders and the settlers. Speaking broadly, the raiders are the bad guys, the settlers are the good guys, but it's really like they're more supposed to be shades of gray. They're each reacting to the nuclear apocalypse in different ways, and we're going to get to experience that. But it's described how the choices we're going to make while interacting with these factions will actually decide their fate. So it certainly seems like we'll have some options as far as the survival or failure of one of these factions in this new area. It's a real high-level look at the story or the main quest line that is getting added in, and that's honestly all we really have. There's a lot of unanswered questions around this area, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bethesda is simply saving this for when it actually releases. So we're not going to find out too much ahead of time. But there's a lot of other interesting variables that have been teased and make this story sound interesting. In the official trailer for Wastelanders, it opens with the Vault 76 Overseer's voice.
It's been some time since Vault 76 opened its door. And we all discovered that Appalachia isn't quite what it used to be.
The person that actually directs you through the existing main quest line. At the end of Vault 76, you don't know what happens to the Vault 76 Overseer. It's definitely a loose end, and her making a return as a legitimate human NPC could be possible, and it certainly would be an interesting story component. Maybe she's one of the factors that got these two other groups into the region. We also know that sub-factions in the way of other NPCs will be coming to the area. There's reportedly going to be multiple multiple of these, but the one we know about explicitly is the Cultists of the Mothman. We can see these two in the trailer. It looks like they're going to have their own little base or settlement. That's what you can see in the background. In Fallout 76 right now, there's a ton of potential options as far as lore or story around these cultists could go, and although it's not really clear what size or scope there will be as far as side quests go for these smaller factions, you certainly can get hopeful that we'll have something at the very least. In the trailer, we also see this fairly mysterious looking base that is underground. It almost looks like it's in some kind of ultrasite-esque cabin. The flags next to it actually look like they are from the Brotherhood of Steel. The base itself looks very Brotherhood of Steel, so maybe the Brotherhood of Steel actually play a role with this one, although this power armor may seemingly be part of the Enclave, which is something I'll talk more about later in this video. So the Brotherhood of Steel or the Enclave are definite maybes as potential other side factions we see get added in with this, that maybe will have their own little subplot in this main story. It also has been confirmed that the hostile raiders are making a return. In all likelihood, this will probably be pretty similar to what we see in Fallout 4, is just those random raider enemies that you stumble upon every once in a while. The Fallout 76 experiment with making other players be the enemies really didn't pan out, so I think they're just going with the bad guy NPC route again. It's not totally clear how much backstory or depth this faction will have, but it will be a new addition nonetheless. But one of the other things that will likely play a pretty big role in this entire story is Vault 79. In one of the promotional images, we do get a look at the Vault 79 vault door, what looks like it's almost opening up. Based on how this is drawn, it looks like those settlers or those people there are actually coming out of Vault 79. Maybe the settlers we encounter through this story were actually vault dwellers. On the other side of the boat, you can see the crashed space station, which is the base of these new raiders. But even further, we could also see what almost looks like an Enclave combatant, giving a little more credence to the idea that the Enclave could also play a role here. But it also looks like Vault 79 is full of gold. Considering these two groups are after a certain treasure, maybe this is the treasure. It's held within Vault 79, and the major plot point is getting into it or finding the treasure within it. One of the major parts that was described around the story component of this, though, was that the ending of the story will be heavily influenced by our decisions, and that some of the major story elements will be a byproduct of how we treat some of these NPCs, which obviously is massively different than what we see in Fallout 76 right now. But to be clear, with this story, this is getting added atop what we have already. This isn't a replacement of the existing game, it's going to be an addition. You could play one or the other. It's been described in some interviews that you could run out of the vault and start this new quest line, or do the older one if you'd rather go that route. So it doesn't seem like this is really going to be necessarily a continuation of the past quest, but rather something different that's taking place in the same setting, but of course 1 year after the fact. One thing that has been described though is how these new factions will actually infest the map of Fallout 76. This will happen in a variety of different ways. Of course, there's going to be new settlements. We've seen that the raiders are taking over the crashed space station, rebuilding their own base there. Later on in that trailer, it certainly looks like they have some underground components here, like an underground base is present. This DLC is being built around instancing technology. We see this being put into action right now with the brand new vault raids. This basically means that when you actually enter into a new location, such as this crashed space station base, what you see on the inside will be unique to just you. There might be some overlap between what you see and somebody else does see, but let's say you decide, hey, I really hate this one NPC. Now you have the option to kill them because what you're seeing is unique to you. So you're not going to kill them and ruin the experience for other players. For that reason, I would expect just overall with this settlement and many of the other new locations to have a real focus on interior locations. A little load screen you have to go to enter into your own instance. But outside of the crashed space station, that looks awesome and hopefully we'll have a lot more depth now. On the other side of things, we also do have Anchor Farm. This seems to be the main base of the settlers and frankly doesn't look nearly as interesting. Outside of just some of these existing settlements and even some new ones that we don't know too much about, throughout the trailer you could see a lot of places that look new and custom, but it's hard to really pinpoint their location. We also know there'll be a myriad of new random encounters involving these new factions and some of these new NPCs. There's not too many details as to what this could mean in general, but it's likely these random encounters will really make the world feel lived in, like there actually are other people here now. You'll just be walking somewhere and suddenly someone will come up to you that wasn't there previously, probably giving you a mini quest quest or objective to do. In one of the shots, we could also see a Scorch Beast flying over the giant excavator. I don't know if that's just cinematic, but typically Scorch Beasts don't spawn there. Is that a byproduct of the Scorch Plague spreading? Did we destroy it at the end of Fallout 76's existing story? We don't really know where that whole storyline is going to go when we have this 1 year time shift, time jump. Is it still going to be a major problem, or is it now getting contained based on the actions that we've done as Vault 76 dwellers? Outside of that, one other thing that is described are points of interest, just new map locations that will be interesting and have some of these new characters. One that is explicitly mentioned is now near Vault 76, there's going to be a little tavern that will have a NPC bartender in it. I think it'd actually be pretty cool if we have a Biv prototype or some other take on Biv in this location. But either way, overall, what this is really meant to mean is that even if you beat the entire main quest of Wastelanders, there's still going to be more changed around the world. It's not just a couple of new quests and story elements, but actually a lot more than that. It's a real overhaul to Fallout 76. We also know that a reputation system is getting added to the game. Based on your actions and choices, you'll have the ability to align with one faction or another, either the Raiders or the Settlers. You're not going to be wholly locked into this decision per se. You'll have the option to cross, double cross, or even switch sides, but also you'll have the option to double down with one faction or the other. What decisions you make, how you're treating one faction versus the other, will play a role in what kind of dialogue options you have available to you, what kind of choices you can make. Speaking of dialogue options, we know that they're going for a much more Fallout 3 approach to dialogue compared to what we have in Fallout 4. Obviously, Fallout 76 doesn't even really have dialogue, or at least no dialogue options to choose from. What this means is now you're going to go back to that list style of dialogue. Things are described as being a little bit more in depth, not just having 4 generic options, but hopefully a little bit more variety there, with your special stats playing a pretty big role in passing through speech checks in this, much more similar to how it was in previous games. And of course, describing that instancing tech again, each conversation you have will be unique to just you, the player. What you're talking about and hearing will be different than what somebody else might be hearing talking to the same NPC. But again, as a result of the use of this instancing technology, many of the new NPCs will be mostly in the new areas or towns, or the ones real focused around this questline to enable this functionality, to enable true consequence by you. But speaking of new NPCs, companions are making a return in this DLC. They described how there's going to be companion options for both the Raider and the Settler faction, but also how you're going to be able to make decisions and choices that your companions will either approve of or disapprove of, but also impact their favor towards you. And this also will mark the return of romanceable companions. Reportedly, some of these companions will also have their own quests that you can complete for them. Although they're described as being a full or complete companion experience, they're not going to work exactly the same way as in past games. Most of the time, they're going to stay at your camp or only come with you on special missions, not following you around everywhere. This again being due to the instancing technology and the way Fallout 76 is set up, but they still will follow you from time to time as special guests, or at least that's how it's been described. One of the other minor features that has been described is gold panning. That's this little video of the guy searching for gold in the river, so seemingly we could search for gold now. It definitely fits in with the whole race for the treasure theme that seems to be one of the main backbones of this new DLC. But moving on and taking a look at some of the more concrete or specific things, we also know there's going to be a variety of new NPCs coming with this. Two of the major ones or standout ones that have been shown off are the Wendigo Colossus and the Floaters. The Wendigo Colossus is basically going to be the merging of 3 existing Wendigo, that being a creature you could find right now in Fallout 76. These were humans mutated by radiation, and they are seemingly cannibalistic. We don't know too much about the functionality or the gameplay of the Wendigo Colossus. It obviously looks like a fairly strong boss-esque enemy, something that is pretty scary looking. But what exactly caused 3 Wendigo to kind of get merged into one, and what made their legs so long? Is it more radiation? Is it experimentation, such as exposure to the FEV virus? We don't really know, but outside of that, we also are getting the Floaters. The Floaters were one of the enemies we did see in Fallout 1 and 2. Similar to the Deathclaws, it seems like these were also infected by the FEV virus, originally starting out as flatworms, but now being this large hulking creature. In Fallout 76, we know there's going to be multiple variants of these, not just one floater, but actually several. And although as of right now, all we've really seen are concept art, it certainly seems like it'll be another cool hulking enemy that will tower over us. Although it may not be totally totally clear from the background footage, these guys actually do hover slightly. Outside of those two, we don't know a ton about other NPCs coming. We do of course have several of the human NPCs. We see some of these in the trailer. We do have their lip sync files in the files of Fallout 76 right now. Daniel appearing to be the settler leader is one of the main named ones we can find, but there's a lot of potential for other things, other unused content we find in the files of Fallout 76 but can't necessarily connect to the new DLC. Maybe it gets used, or conversely, maybe it gets abandoned, but I for one would actually love to see this bat thing in game. On the other side of things, weapons are actually something we know a lot about. The bow and arrow is coming to the game. We've known about this for a while. We see it in the gameplay trailer. It's going to look like this, but we also know from QuakeCon that it's actually going to come with its own set of perks, some of these being stealth focused, other ones being hunter focused, so perhaps you'll get additional meat from killing creatures with this thing, but also that dynamite arrows are apparently going to be a part of this, so you can shoot some arrows and blow things up from a distance. We've also seen additional concept art for some of the other weapon classes that are coming with this. We know that we're getting a whole new Gauss rifle line, looking to be made up of several different variants here. These textures are also in the file, so it seems pretty concrete that we're getting this, and it's going to look pretty similar to what we see here, this being kind of similar to some of the Gauss items we had in previous games, and probably pretty similar to the existing Gauss rifle, but also an expansion to the plasma weapon tree, adding in several new and additional plasma items, and of course featuring the return of the plasma caster, one of the most iconic weapons from some of the older Fallouts. As far as new armors go, there's a lot of interesting stuff around this. From the Wastelanders trailer, especially when it comes to the raiders, you could actually see a lot on display. A lot of new armors that have this kind of tire theme around the raiders. Something kind of odd or interesting here, several of these have actually been released into the game as microtransactions on the Atomic Shop. So some of these still are potentially coming, but some of them are actually out right now. You can pay for them and get them in game. I'm not really sure what happened with that one. Maybe if these were originally planned for Wastelanders, but then they pushed them up for the Atomic Shop going with a different design. But also from QuakeCon, we saw some more concept art of a lot of different outfits. Some of this just being typical settler attire. It definitely looks cool and good, but what I found more interesting were some of the armors shown off in this, as almost all of them have a snow theme, or it certainly looks like somebody preparing for winter. We know that this new DLC will feature a time jump of about 1 year, but could that time jump also involve a season change? Could it be transitioning Fallout 76 from a kind of fall spring area to more of a winter theme with snow on the ground? It'd be a really cool twist that I haven't seen too many people talking about, and this could be alluding to it. We also do have this power armor from the trailer. Through data mining, we know that this is in fact the Secret Service power armor, or at least there are texture files in the game right now with the Secret Service badges on them that do match this power armor. Maybe there'll be numerous variants of this, but it could allude to an Enclave presence, or maybe some Enclave quests that actually unlock this new power armor. Finally, with this update, we know of several other things that are on the way. Bethesda describes how during this stage, they're actually going to go through renormalization with the game, basically an overhaul of the game balance as a whole, so damage coming from low level versus high level players will be a bit more similar and not feature extreme differences one way or the other, but also the legendary perk card system will be coming. So after you hit level 50, starting then and for each additional 50 levels you do hit, you'll be able to take a legendary perk from one of your special stats. These are supposed to be much more powerful perk cards. They'll apply to your existing character, but also if you create a new character, you could use that new legendary perk card on them also. This again not being directly related to Wastelanders per se, but other things that should be shipping right around the same time. But otherwise, yeah, that's actually a pretty comprehensive look or description on all of the new stuff that is coming. There's a lot, and obviously this video took quite a bit of time to make and compile. If you enjoyed it, I do appreciate a like or subscription. There should be a lot more Wastelanders content coming on this channel. I am very excited for it, and hopefully what I just described sounds exciting to you. At least on paper, this looks like an awesome DLC. It looks like Bethesda is doing what we want them to, adding in those features we've been requesting. Now obviously Fallout 76 has had some other stability or performance issues. Hopefully they can get that all sorted before the release of this DLC, but otherwise this definitely looks like something to get hyped for, and it looks like it'll be a massive release for the game. As always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, but with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.